Thank you, everyone, and good morning. I know it's very early, actually, to discuss such complicated topics. The good news, after listening to Christian, is that actually we are quite aligned in what we'll say. So let's kick off. So very quickly, I'm an associate partner here in Romania for EY. I joined the country 6 years ago. Still, my Romanian doesn't enable me actually to do this presentation in your native language. This is a few areas that we are covering. As you see, you cannot see actually accounting. So this is for me something that is done by someone else. And in this case, I guess actually that's not where we should invest in the future. The idea of this presentation is actually to say, okay, how can we transform the CFO from a compliance function and scorekeeper function to actually create value for the business? And that's where I guess Christian was also mentioning that the role of the CFO and the finance function at large should actually be to sustain the business, support the business in a sustainable way, quite agile way, which is usually not the reputation of the finance function. There are tensions, so I have very nice slides for that. I'll keep you not too long, but the idea is actually lots of stakeholders, internal, external, lots of tensions on the finance function, lots of overwork, and we see more and more actually investors or analysts, let's say, also activists that are coming, and obviously the board, which is asking for validating business decision or enabling business decision. So this actually put the CFO and all the finance function into a kind of multi-area role, and they can work obviously on compliance, mentioned earlier, M&A mentioned earlier, but also supporting IT. Lots of investments in digitalization, capital, heavy capital to be lifted actually for these transformations. Corporate strategy, how to validate the forecast, the business plan, how to stress test the business plan. And I guess last year, for the last 18 months, 2 years, we actually saw that stress testing can actually happen in real life. And there's also obviously all the procurement area, the cost-cutting programs, and in the end, the risk management as well. So this part actually is in the heart of every CFO's duty right now. We see that they are expanding their role more and more in the C-suite, so it's supporting HR, IT, and all other C-level stakeholders in the company. So, as I was saying, the idea is how do we go from the scorekeeper part to the strategic business partner, and this is what is requested from CFO. So it's not something that any CFO or finance function should wish. It's actually something that needs to happen so that the company can have a sustainable business. And as of today, even if the CFO and the finance function see themselves as contributing to the strategic partnership with the business, with the CEO, whoever is in frontline, they are not perceived as such yet. From all studies we do globally and more locally, we don't see this image actually changing. So finance is still very much linked to accounting in the eyes of internal stakeholders. So how to actually be visible in that role, how to contribute a bit more. This is, from my perspective, the challenge for the next few years, and it started already for some of us, I guess. Few disruptions that are happening. I'm not going through all details, obviously, but the industry is changing. So I guess you've seen that going from physical sales to online sales, for instance, was a big move last year. But it's not only this. Disruption is happening from companies that are not in your sector. So you'll get disrupted, whoever you are, by someone who is not in your sector. Banking technology today is disrupted by FinTech OS, FlowX, that are IT companies, not banking companies. Revolut, if we take this example, or any neobank, are actually at the very beginning, they are IT guys creating services. So disruption will happen from a lot of perspective. Technologies are actually accelerating these days, and we've seen that in the past 2 years since the pandemic started. How do you actually accompany your workforce? How do you train people? Because finance function relies on systems on one hand. On the other hand, you need actually people to think and take decisions and provide some analysis. Data, there is a huge topic around data. Big data is coming. How do we do to not average any decision? You still need to cluster your clients. There's a huge need for segmentation, and when a lot of data are becoming too much data. So how do you actually sort out? How do you make the best value out of it? And finally, all the compliance risk. So there are lots of reportings that came already. There are lots of reportings to come. Some of you may know for the biggest company in Romania that actually they will have to produce non-financial reporting and audited ones starting 2023, which will put additional pressure on the ESG part. So, and usually this falls under the CFO, even if it's non-financial, because it's reporting and based on KPIs, and the best actually to do that is usually the CFO team. So what we put as a model, and this is why consultants are good, putting models, is actually to turn from a lot of accounting, as we see as of today, taking half of the workload of any finance team, to a more balanced vision, which would actually emphasize more the controlling part, the performance management part, as well as all the programs, how to allocate the capital, which is a very important topic. How do you actually generate a roadmap of projects for IT that would actually not kill your working capital? And finally, obviously, supporting all the portfolio and the corporate finance part. So this model actually comes with a lot of automation in everything that is transactional, especially in the accounting. I could spend hours on this slide. I guess you'll get it after the presentation, but the idea is that whatever your function is, you'll get disrupted by technology. Your job as it is today may disappear. So what would be your job tomorrow? And even things like risk and compliance today are disrupted by artificial intelligence and algorithm that starts actually producing controls better than human beings, or faster at least. So yeah, this is actually a few things that we see, and this is not science fiction on the right side. So there are existing solutions behind all these little squares you can see. So what do we expect from the CFO and his team? We expect them to be very responsive. So if I have a business issue, then can you please answer on spot? That's a new requirement. Market is moving very fast. Reforecasting became a challenge for everyone. It can be a very heavy process with lots of Excel files coming from lots of different teams. And how can we actually make it happen very quickly? The second thing is insightful. So that's the data part, I would say. How can you rely on your data? How can you do a segmentation, have visibility on your business, find these 20% clients that are generating 80% of your turnover, or how can you find actually the 80% of client generating 20% of your issues? So lots of data to be sorted out, and being efficient in the sense that the quality is actually at the heart of the CFO and finance function today. This is why, let's say, the CFO is a trusted partner in general, is because the quality of whatever goes outside of accounting, outside of reporting, is something of high quality. And therefore, we need to maintain in the CFO teams this exigence for quality in everything that is done. A few enablers on the bottom of these slides. Depending on your industry, you may be more or less impacted. There is obviously all the automation part, which already started a while ago, with very, very different results from one company to another. And speaking of the business case, not always actually delivering whatever was in the plan. So this is something that has to be completely reviewed. There's the next generation ERPs are coming. SAP S/4HANA is one very good example of that. And how can we actually leverage those technologies to not only enable finance, but also make the link with the business, make the links with the procurement, make the link with the supply chain part. Internet of Things, so not everyone is concerned yet, but definitely if you have to follow your supply chain, it can be a very important topic for the CFOs as well. I've seen recently a company sending trucks everywhere in Romania, not knowing where the trucks were, and therefore actually delays in delivery, additional costs coming because they had to stock everything that was not sent, and they also receive penalties from their clients if they were not delivering in time. So how do you actually address that? How do you optimize this cost? Big data, so with the cloud and software as a service, obviously. Blockchain, again, very early stage for the moment, but we see that big companies, global companies, already clear some transactions through blockchain. And I kept the best for the last, for the end of it. Talent management, again, if you are going through all these digital disruptions, how do you adapt your workforce to that? So there is a need, absolute need, to actually ensure that your team is fit for whatever is coming. Your team is a bit more agile, and that you actually build the skills that you will need tomorrow, which is a huge challenge for everyone. And it's not only a corporate issue, so there is an educational issue coming before from universities and so on. So there should be partnerships between, let's say, the private sector and universities to enable actually this and to share actually with them what are the needs of the different companies. So, as I was saying, so it's just mostly a reshuffling, but these are the big trends that we see today. Clearly the IoT part or blockchain part is still very early stage for most of the companies, but the rest of it is very present already. So I'm pretty sure that any finance function in the room already experienced some sort of automation, whatever automation means in these aspects. And also the IT part, should it be on premise, should it be on cloud? How to make the choice, how to ensure the security of it. That's always a big discussion with most of the CFOs. One reminder though, and I took a quote from someone a bit more clever than I am. There is no need to actually automate something that is useless. There is no need to actually automate something which is inefficient today. So there is a huge need for cleanup before going through this kind of digitalization program. Putting a robot to produce a reporting that nobody's looking at is just a cost. There is no efficiency behind. Just remove the reporting and actually the cost will disappear with it. When we do such standardization and let's say voice of clients kind of discussions with CFOs, what we discover is that 25 to 30% of the reportings that are produced are actually not used by anyone in the company. So that's why everyone is overworked today. The workload is coming from this kind of inefficiency, and we see requests to actually automate such reportings because we don't see the value of it, so we say, okay, let's automate it. So please, before going to this kind of automation program, have a standardization one, just look at what is used by who, and then we can start building useful dashboards for everyone. But this quote is also something that I keep in mind each time I'm discussing with a client, is that before going to digitalization and spending a lot of money on digitalization, please ensure that you actually need to automate this process. This is actually the model that we use in EY with our clients to ensure that we review completely the target operating model. So these are the few 7 dimensions that we actually check at. Obviously, reviewing what data is available or not, the people structure that you have, and how can you actually reskill or upskill your population. What are the technology that you can use or not? And there's no need for IMEME in Romania to actually invest in SAP S/4HANA. There are ERPs that are well more adapted to the market than SAP S/4HANA. Maybe Unilever needs SAP S/4HANA or this kind of sized, let's say, ERP, but maybe some more entrepreneurial companies don't need SAP S/4HANA. So it looks very nice from the outside, but sometimes, you know, a smaller ERP is way enough. Then all the organization and location mostly for international groups, but in the case of local and domestic market, the organizational part is very important. Do I need to have accountants in Iași, Timișoara, Bucharest, and Cluj? Maybe not today. Maybe it was the case 2 years ago. It's not the case anymore. So you can actually regroup them wherever it makes sense, wherever this kind of profile is available, and wherever the cost suits you as well. So that's a very different discussion. And then, how do I turn this policy controls part, so compliance part, into actually business insight? Compliance doesn't have to be just a cost. It can also generate data so that you can use for the business. So how can you actually turn this compliance part into business insights? We had the discussion with some highly regulated companies in the electricity sector, energy sector, sorry, in the banking sector, in the pharma sector. Actually, they have lots of data that they produce for compliance, and they don't use the data for business. As I said, review your processes, and then also be very agile in the way you measure your performance, either the company performance, either the people performance. So what is expected from people, be very agile on that, and what is expected from the company, and can you actually change this performance measurement as you reforecast your business as the market is changing? So these are the few challenges that we see, and yeah, please do not hesitate to ask any question on that. I'll try to answer everything. Thank you very much.